at Trevecca. And these years have flown by. I've done some basketball camps over there. He's done a really good job transitioning that program from NAIA to NCAA Division II. They've had a lot of success, but he is retiring, and we're going to wish him well. We're going to talk to him later this hour. Trevor Matich is going to join us today. We'll get his thoughts on what's going on with the world of football. And, of course, we're going to break down the opening day press conference. A lot of things. I took a couple pages of notes on this thing, and I know a lot of you have probably heard at least bits and pieces of it by now. But if you work all day, we're going to go through the big stuff. So we're looking forward to that. So, DMase, let's just start off this way. Yes. What do you think? What was the number one theme of the press conference that you took away from it? And because then I'll go through some of the stuff that I found interesting.
Yeah, I think he wants, this team to operate in a certain way. He's going to implement whatever he needs to implement in order for this team to be a winning team. But he also knows that, it may take some time. He doesn't exactly know what this team, will look like ultimately at the beginning of the season. And that's with everybody. But I think he's guarded in a sense, but he understands the task at hand. And he's not trying to oversell anyone. He's about hard work and allowing the players to decide, who goes out there and play ultimately.
I did feel that it was a lot of process-oriented questions. Teresa Walker, and by the way, a tip of the hat to Teresa announcing her retirement at the end of the season, her 30th year for the Associated Press here in Nashville. So she has been covering Titans press conferences going back to the very, very beginning. And so she, as she normally does, started off the press conference with the question. So we'll be saluting Teresa all throughout the year. But she started off, and it was Joe Dubin that you remember he just absolutely zapped Brian Callahan with a question of, do you guys think you can win the Super Bowl this year? And it was a really interesting question because it was so off what you would expect at a press conference like that, and it really caught them by surprise. So she asked it in a little different way and referred back to last year. But it was really a way to say, okay, what's your vision of the season? And Mike Borgonzi, I thought they did a good job in that press conference of not saying anything, either Robert Saleh or Mike Borgonzi, that was going to be making the rounds of what is the goofiness I'm hearing out of that locker room. What is happening?
They were saying.
It was very businesslike, and it was realistic. It was look, we got a long way to go. A long way to go. They're focused on trying to build a foundation. But I think within that, it did lay out some of the things that I think we hit on yesterday, and that is, can they build something solid at the foundation without a lot of talent? I think you can look at it pretty honestly and say there's still a ways away talent-wise from where they're going to need to be to win a lot. But I think you hit on something that I heard, I think, from them in a way. They're trying to see what they got. Who can they find 3 or 4 guys that really emerge, preferably younger guys, that they stumble on and say, okay, that's a piece. I could put that stake in the ground, and that is where I'm going to build around. Because right now it is really hard to envision who those guys are right now beyond Jeffrey Simmons and 1 or 2 other guys.
Yeah, and here's the quote, and I was looking for it, but here's the quote that, it was funny in a sense, but, you kind of understood it once he was finished. He said, I've always said that confidence is always projected in the volume of your voice. By the end of training camp, I hope we're loud as bleep.
Yes.
And when you first hear it, you're laughing, but then once you sit back and think about it, it's playing this game at this level, a lot of it, and I mean a lot of it, is all mental. And that's where that confidence come in. When you're confident in what you're doing and you're not going up to the line of scrimmage, offense or defense, and still thinking about, oh my goodness, what do I have? What do I have? You can't play loud. You can't communicate. And this defense is built on communication. He said that at the beginning when he got hired. It's about communicating. And if you don't have the confidence, throughout two-a-days and at the end of two-a-days where y'all not screaming, if you hear something wrong, you're not screaming, that's wrong, it's this. Your only quiet is if you don't really know. So he want his guys, once this thing ends right before the season and heading into the season, he wants this team to be confident, not a, boastfulness or whatnot, but it's the confidence in what I'm doing. So we're going to be loud about it. We're going to communicate across the board, offensively and defensively.
And I think that will be something to watch. But that is going to take, I think, a lot of maturity on the part of the fans if they're not winning, because there are scenarios, Derek, and you can probably think back to some in your career where the team may not be super successful, but you still walk in there every day feeling like this is a good group. This group is moving in the right direction. They're playing together. And there are plenty of examples where a team that's struggling, you look in the locker room and you see a team that's not playing together, right? But I think that is going to be maybe job one. It might be, I don't know. It's probably Cam Ward's development is probably the number one priority. But beyond that, I think is the group moving ahead collectively, even if the one-loss record is not where they want to be?
I think this team, you talked about, sort of the are they together or, and are they winning, or is this a locker room that's not together and losing? I think no matter what, this locker room has to build whatever it needs to build in order to win. But even with that, while they're building it, and I know this sounds crazy to fans because they want to win, and I get it. But while you're building, sometimes winning, just because you didn't win that game or two, doesn't mean you're not developing as a team. You're not getting better as a team. You're just not talented enough. Like, if we look at it last year, after sort of hindsight 2020, were they good enough to compete with the first 10 teams they played last year or the first 7 teams they played last year?
I would say they were surprisingly closer in games than you would have thought.
But as far as when you look back on it and you say, was this team really good enough to beat those teams? They hung with them, yes.
Right, for a while.
Exactly, but were they man to a man better than that team?
No. And then even the first game that they won,
exactly,
it was a fluke.
But it's
when you
about
get down to it.
And that's what I mean. It's about getting better within the locker room and on the field. And sometimes because you don't have the talent, but when you get the talent, this structure and this culture is built where these guys come in and now automatically they hit the ground running. That's why teams, the Kansas City Chiefs, New England for a long time, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, that's why they're able to win with so many iterations of teams, because everybody understands when they walk in that locker room, it's about building. The winning is going to come, and we built enough to now we can reap the rewards from it. And the Titans are not there just yet, and they were not there last year.
And that was one theme running down the press conference. But the other thing that was mixed with it, and this is where you ask yourself, at the top, what is the boss thinking? What is Amy thinking? She was referred to several times. And when you look back these last 3 years, there's been change. A lot of change over the last 3 or 4 years. Tumultuous stuff. Change the coach, change the GM, change the quarterback. Combination of the 3, sometimes 2 out of 3. The question was asked, and it was a good one. Do you feel urgency this year? Because it's nice to be able to say, I think in your first year for Mike Borgonzi, hey, I just got here. I inherited a mess. There's no players here, right? This is going to be, but in year 2, you start to feel that, hey, we're still not there yet. And he made that point more than once. We're not where we want to be. We got a long way to go with this roster. But he also knows that in this league, if you're not showing progress and you have an owner with an itchy habit of pulling the plug, you feel that urgency. So they need some things to go right. It just won't be an easy thing if they stink again, even if we're sitting there telling ourselves, who are the players? Who are their guys that are going to make plays? They're still short in that area. That's why they need some heroes to step up. They need some people, probably young players, to really jump and get ahead of schedule.
I think the moves that they made in the offseason and how they drafted tells you the sense of urgency they have, whether it's coming from Amy or it's coming from Borgonzi. Because to me, this doesn't look like a team that, even though they may understand that from a talent standpoint, we are not where we can consistently, compete and win and be a perennial playoff team. We're not there yet. But there is a sense of urgency to win, because you don't go out and do the things that you did from a defensive standpoint in free agency, and then from an offensive standpoint in both free agency and the draft. That's a team that's trying to build, yes, but they're also trying to position themselves to win right now, because they understand how this league is. You're 1 or 2 injuries away. Ask the Kansas City Chiefs. You're an injury or 2 away from being considered the best team. You can ask Baltimore. Then you get 3-4 games in the season and you got an injury or 2. Prime example, the Indianapolis Colts. They were on their way to the playoffs. They were on their way to either a number 1 seed or a top seed. Quarterback gets hurt. They flatline. So when you're trying to build a team, yes, you're building it for the long haul, but you understand too that anything can happen. We are not in control of other things that happen around us. And it may work out in our benefit, but we can't just sit here and act like, oh, we're in total rebuild mode. I think they want to win now. Now, does it need to be, what was Adams? He said, did you ask the question to Adam? I think
Adam was
the double the win.
Can they double? Would you bet
that they double
fictitious money that they would double their win total from 3 to 6?
So
at least,
I think realistically for them, 6 wins is showing the owner that we're improving. But make no mistake, they're trying to win more than 6 games.
Of course.
So they're not structuring.
You don't limit yourself.
Exactly. They're bringing the guys that they brought in, that they have brought in. They brought them in to win now. Now, what does that look like? Will it ultimately end in making it to the playoffs this year? I don't know, but that's the goal.
During the 5 o'clock hour today, we're really going to get into coaches like Robert Saleh who are getting their second chance, right? They have brought him in, and to a lesser extent, Brian Daboll, who he's been around the block. He's not the head coach, but he's getting a fresh start. They have brought these guys in to try to get more out of what they've had from the coaching staff. But we're going to look at the track record of coaches on the second run. How successful have his predecessors been, and what has he done to ask himself, how do I get better? What have I learned from my first go-round? It's a really good question that was asked for him. He gave a pretty good answer. So we're going to talk about that a lot, because I think some of what we're talking about here will be how much can these coaches squeeze out of what they do have right now, and how well have they drafted? Another theme was the group of players that are under 25. They are desperately trying to build a nucleus of players in that age range. They haven't had any because they've drafted so poorly. Mike Borgonzi was starting from way behind in that area. He likes what last year's rookie class did collectively. He's hoping that they will be a year better, and he's hoping he gets something out of this year's rookie class. It will be essential that happens if they're going to look like they make progress. But I thought those were interesting themes, because think about how much they've changed. They've scrapped the whole defense. They scrapped the plan. They changed a lot there'll be more new players than old players on the defense. The scheme is completely different. And Robert Saleh even said the weight training and the conditioning is completely different. So were they doing it completely wrong before? That suggests that what they were doing before was horrible, the worst. And I don't know that it's that simple.
No,
And I don't know it's as simple as, well, just do it differently and the results will be better. I don't know. But this is what we're going to find out.
yeah, I don't think it was necessarily saying that, oh, that was bad and our system was better. It's just that when you come in any new situation, and if you've had things that have worked for you in the past, and if those things don't match up, then you tend to bring the things, and you may keep a few of the things that was sort of like a leftover from the previous, employer or in this case, the former weight training coach. So I don't think it's a referendum on, what the prior guy did. I just think it's more so him coming in and saying these are the things that work, and he has a track record. His track record says that he had good defenses when he was with the Jets, definitely with the 49ers. So I'm bringing everything that I took to those places here, and I'm getting better, as a head coach, because he did talk a little bit about, just learning, doing things different, rather than sticking with the old model as far as what he did his first stint as a head coach.
615-737-1025. We're going to continue to talk about the themes as we open training camp. And tomorrow we'll have our chance to watch them actually on the field, get after it. What does it look like when you see the guys out there? Because as another quote from Mike Borgonzi, let's see what happens when they put the pads on. That is going to be another topic we hit later in the show, the offensive line. A lot of questions about that. Have they improved? Are they going to help Cam Ward in that area not run for his life? 615-737-1025 is our number. This is DVD. We're broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. When we come back, a couple other news and notes. What does it look like for Will Levis? Will they keep 3 quarterbacks? What about injured players? Some of the other things that jumped out during the press conference to sort of set the table for 2026 Titans training camp. Stay tuned. We're getting cranking here on DVD. This is 102.5 The Game. Coverage of Titans training camp is presented by Tennessee Brewworks, Parman Energy, and the Music City kickoff game. Parman Energy, your one-stop petroleum solution. Visit parmanenergy.com. Now, DMase is on music today.
Yes.
So what is the angle today?
Today is 90s music. This is what this is. So there are 5 years here. You just got to pick which song fits the year. Connor, give him the years because I wrote all this down for Connor.
So is this similar to yesterday?
Yes,
This is
similar to
basically yesterday.
There will be multiple choice?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So what you did yesterday was the 2000s. DMase is doing the 90s, which means I got to do the 80s.
Okay.
tomorrow.
I actually stretched it into like both decades of the 2000s.
You
or the
did.
first 2 decades. I did the aughts and then the teens.
You did. So your choices today, Willie, are 1999, 1995, 1996, 93, and 90.
So it's kind of compressed.
Yes. So it should be a little bit easier for you.
90, 93, 95.
Let me say it
90.
in order. These songs are out of order, so let me give you the years counting down. 99, 96, 95, 93, 90.
So there are 5 possibilities.
Yes.
See, I think the degree of difficulty is a little tougher here.
Oh, you think?
I think so. So I have to get this.
Yeah. Just got to pick the year.
Got to get Ricky Martin here.
Mhm. Living
Um,
la vida loca.
I'm going to go 99 for him. Okay, I'm off to a good start. All right.
Living la vida
Okay.
loca.
Okay.
There you go, Willie.
Very nice. All right. Okay. I'm going to get the positive vibes going. I'm going to keep that going. All right. Let's get back into it. And by the way, if you want to weigh in, if you heard the press conference or you've heard some of the notes, jump in with your biggest questions for Titans training camp. And then a little later in the show, we'll talk to Trevor Matich and see what he thinks of all this. And even touch on a couple of college things. The Big Ten media days are going on right now. 615-737-1025. A couple of news and notes here. This is one that jumped out at me.
Mm-hmm.
The only real issue, health-wise, at least for now,
Mm-hmm.
it could change in a day. It could change at practice tomorrow. But J.C. Latham is on the pup, but they called him day-to-day with that pectoral strain that he's been dealing with through the OTAs. But, man, is he an important guy? And we're going to talk about him later in the show in the context of the entire offensive line. But it's a big year for him, and he is starting not on the field. But are you concerned about that, or were you fairly encouraged that it doesn't seem to be anything too serious?
And listen, I think hopefully, JC is playing sooner rather than later. But this pec strain, it does worry me. It does. Because to me, it's like a receiver, running his knee or his hamstring, something like that. And as we know about hamstrings, and even knees to a certain extent, but really hamstrings, that thing can go at any instance, especially when you're having trouble with it. So whenever we hear that from a wide receiver, what do we think? Oh boy,
Yeah,
it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting.
right. You're on pins and needles a little bit, worried about it.
Absolutely. So what do you think it's for J.C. Latham? I think we should be not overly concerned, but this does need to be monitored because he uses his arms.
Yes.
He got to punch and he got to do all these things. He has to protect Cam Ward. And if your upper body, let alone your knees, but if your upper body, if you don't have that upper body strength you need, what good are you? Even with good technique, eventually you're going to get broke down by the end of the game if this continues to be a problem. So again, I'm going to continue, and everybody should, and I know they will, that follow the team and talk about them. You got to monitor this. You really do. And, maybe they're sort of easing him into it. And maybe he's okay, but they just want to be really cautious because they understand how much he means to this offensive line, meaning they need him out there to truly get some more evaluation of him. But this is not something I'm just going to sweep up under the rug and say, oh, I'm not worried about it. No, because if this was a wide receiver going into camp, I would be saying the same thing, like, a hamstring.
And I think you make a good point. It's not like he's made his mark and you know exactly what you're getting. He's still a guy that they need to take another step or two. And if it's inhibited him in his ability to have a great offseason, come into camp in perfect shape, which it sounds like this has been bothering him throughout the OTAs, then it does have you wondering, what is it going to look like at the start of the season? Because injuries derailed his season last year. He got off to a terrible start because he tried to play through some stuff and he was ineffective to a large degree. He's such an important linchpin on that line. So that's the one concern, even though the injury doesn't appear to be something that's going to keep him out for too long. Day to day is how it was clarified. Another topic that I thought was worth touching on, as far as the quarterback position, we know it's crowded, right? They're bringing in a lot of guys. And the question specifically was, would you keep 3 guys?
Yeah.
Because Robert Saleh said Cam Ward will be the starting quarterback. It is not a competition, but there is a competition between Mitch Trubisky and Will Levis. And I don't know if that was surprising to hear for some people, but they even went as far as to say from Mike Borgonzi's end that if the third quarterback is, quote, one of the best 53, we're going to hold on to the best 53. And so he's seen teams that keep 3. He's seen teams that go with 2. So I guess my eyebrows perked up a little bit. So how real do you think it is that Will Levis has a chance to win the number 2 job?
Honestly, I don't. It's hard to say that he truly has an opportunity to win it, knowing how much they paid Trubisky. And I'm sure they told him, you are the backup quarterback. I can't see them telling him anything else. Right. They may have sort of worded it different, but he walked out of there thinking, okay, if something goes wrong with this young kid, I'm the one they're going to put in. So I don't know whether they're going to keep 2 or 3. I think a lot of it, like he said, depends on the roster, how they want to, put this roster together. So if it means, keeping another guy at another spot where they really need him and, not keeping an extra quarterback, all right, they may do that, or they may choose to keep all 3 of them. But there's no benefit right now for him to say, hey, listen, we're going to keep 3 no matter what, or we're only going to keep 2. What he can say, like you said, they're going to compete for the backup job. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, come on, you brought Trubisky in. Really, if he loses the backup, if he becomes your 3rd string, who you trade? Who's going to take him in a trade? And are you really going to cut him? My thing is, if Will Levis beats Trubisky out, they trade Will Levis. That's even more of a reason for them to trade Will Levis.
Well, okay, we'll get Connor's perspective on this here as well, because I think different people will interpret what they say differently. But you're bringing up a really good point that I had thought about. What if Levis wins the job? And because I think, reading between the lines of what Borgonzi said, we're going to keep the best 53. I think he values Will Levis has value. He's a talent. Like I think if you were to cut him tomorrow, he would get a lot of interest,
of course,
by a lot of teams. But they signed Trubisky, so they are not confident enough that Levis just should be handed the number 2 job. So, do you think, Connor, that they're being sincere? That it will be a real competition? And to me, that means they're going to split the reps. They're going to equally have a chance to win that job. That's how you do it right if you're really having a competition.
I think they're being sincere in that comment. I truly think they're going to give Will Levis every opportunity to prove that he can be the backup quarterback. With that being said, I don't think you go out of your way to sign Mitch Trubisky, who is, I would say, one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league at its point in his career. I don't think you go out of the way to make that signing if you don't fully expect him to win that position. So ultimately, I think DMase is right in that they're using this as leverage to see, okay, what is the value for Will Levis? Can we get something before, we either cut him or just let him ride out the remainder of his contract and then let him walk for free? I think they're trying to maximize that value to the best of their ability. And whether or not they're able to do it, we'll see. But I think that's what they're trying to do.
And you don't want to screw other stuff up just to try to showcase a guy so that you can trade him. There's too many other things that are more important than that. But I guess I will ask the question on the other side. Do you think that Trubisky would have any trade value if they wanted to trade him? I mean, we know it's hard to find a good backup quarterback, and there'll probably be an injury or two in training camp for somebody that has them looking over at the Titans and say, oh, well, these guys might be better than what we have based on the injury situation.
It's hard if they brought you in here, because I believe, and this is only me that think this, I guess, or I'm sure. But if they brought him in, something tells me he's going to be the backup. You paid him enough money that you can justify him being the backup. You then can't turn around. Well, you can, but you just don't want to turn around and say, well, he lost the job to Will Levis. I'm sure there will be people out there wanting Trubisky, but if you can't beat out Will Levis, they'll wait for you to get cut before I take on that contract that
and that's the game, right? Because there will be general managers going, just be patient. They're going to cut one of them, and if they cut who I think they're going to cut, that's when we call, and we don't have to get anything up for them. I am how you play it is going to be something to watch. How much does Cam play in the games, right? That's another thing that will affect it, because are you giving Trubisky a chance to play a whole half, or Levis a chance? You could play the heck out of Levis, right? In these preseason games, just to see what he looks like, and have the league be watching and say, boy, he looks really good. But I continue to wonder this, like in the long term, is Levis a viable backup quarterback? Is he a guy that could be the right guy who is better than a Trubisky as the backup? I mean, Brandon Allen, he's come and gone, right? But remember, we were talking about yesterday, if they wanted to sit Cam Ward and let him watch for a while, you had to play Brandon Allen. It would be more intriguing for either of these other two guys to watch them play. So that is something I think, just the way the quarterback position works, the curiosity. Everybody's always wondering what the other guy looks like. I think we're going to end up spending a lot of time on that position if there really is a competition for number 2.
Yeah, I think we will start to slowly see how this thing is going to play out. I mean, I think they even mentioned it in the presser about, I forgot who asked the questions on how you're going to divvy up the time. He said, listen, in camp, the early camp, you saw he tried to give guys equal amount of reps.
He did make that point.
And then as they get into two-a-days now, I may play a third stringer with a first stringer just to see how, is he ready for the moment, or do you think he can handle it? But ultimately, as the weeks go, they're going to have less and less moments to do those things. So I'm really thinking after really the first couple of days of practice in pads, I think that's when you're really going to start to see who's the first line guys and who's the second line guys, because you don't have all that time to sit there and match this guy with that group and this group with that guy. You only have a couple of days to do that. You can't be doing that throughout the whole practice. So I think after probably the second, week, which is, a week full of pads, I think we'll understand who.
We're going to talk a lot more Titans today before the day is up. But in the meantime, we are going to talk a little bit about a story that's going on right down the street. And Mark Elliott, fine contributor to the Nashville sports aura for a long, long time. He is retiring after this year, after 16 years as the Trevecca AD. During the 4 o'clock hour, we'll talk offensive line for the Titans, and we're going to talk to an offensive lineman in Trevor Matich. So we've got a lot coming. We're also going to look at Robert Saleh in his second go-round as an NFL coach. How have his predecessors done in that role? What has he learned from his go-round with the Jets? He was asked about that a lot today at the press conference. Stay tuned. We've got more of DVT coming up. All right, let's check in on Twice Daily. Remember, they're going to be there every day for you. Twice Daily is fresh all day. And what they mean by that is they've got all the goods ready for you. And if you keep going back to that well, if you make them the regular spot and sign up for their rewards program, you're going to save money every day that you go in there for Twice Daily, whether it's going to grab a pizza that you can have delivered to your house or just pick it up right at the store ahead of time. Lots of things that are featured at Twice Daily that you just can't do everywhere. And they've got all of the other goods that you have at the convenience store, the gas, and every time that you go there, once again, if you're part of that rewards program, you're going to save money. You can enter for sweepstakes to win stuff, and they've got you covered. Really happy to have them as part of our show as we kick off another football season. It's Twice Daily, fresh all day. All right. We're back here on DVD. No scrubs. We don't have scrubs on the show, and our next guest is certainly not a scrub.
Absolutely not.
I probably at some point in my career would have been considered on the particular team at the time to be a scrub, but in a fun way.
Yes.
But TLC scrubs, I'm going to say what it might is 1995 is a choice. I'm going 1995.
Okay. You think Mark can? You think
Coach E?
Yeah, Coach E. You think he can get in on this?
Okay, so this would have been the 90s. Coach E was at Vanderbilt for a while. In the early 90s, when I was there, he was my assistant coach under Coach Eddie Fogler for a long time. This was definitely after that. I'm going to give him that. But he's got kids. Maybe the kids filled him in on these things. Coach E, do you have any idea what year that would have been in the 90s? 95, 96 are both,
or 99
or 99 or 90?
93.
Oh, 93.
Yes.
Okay. It's definitely not 93. It's definitely not 93. I'm going to say that.
I would give it a 96.
He's going 96. So I say 95. He says 96.
And what year was it, Connor?
99.
99.
No, I guess that was a follow-up. It was the second. It wasn't their big breakout album.
It was No Scrubs. I think it was on their second album.
Okay.
Wasn't it?
So 99.
It may have been on
Was Waterfalls before that?
Yes, definitely.
I think so.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this wasn't. I was thinking it was all the same album. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm one for two.
You and Coach E got it wrong.
I was still listening to Glenn Miller's big band era.
But Coach Mark Elliott is with us. He's the athletic director at Trevecca. He has announced that he will retire at the end of this academic year that is coming up after 16 years of being at the helm over there. So, Coach E, first of all, congratulations on a great run. It really sort of runs alongside of the creation of this station. It's really interesting because when you took over, that's when this station really started to come into form. So we've watched ourselves grow here down the street along Murfreesboro Road. It's only a few miles from your campus.
Parallel tracks, Willie. That's for sure. Right? I can remember when you guys first started. We were just starting as well, moving from NAI to Division II. So parallel tracks. Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the backdrop of really when you took over. We'll get to that in a second. But first, maybe tell people why you think this is the right time for you to announce this.
Well, what I said in the press release was, there's no sunset here, right? DMase, you know about this. It's just time sometimes, right? It's just time. And sometimes your body gives out, sometimes your mind gives out. Well, that's not the case here. It's just the fact that sometimes if you have a store or restaurant, you walk in that store, you have a job to do every day. But sometimes you forget to start looking at the paint and the cleanliness of the lights and stuff like that. And I just started thinking, it's time for someone to come in with a new vision, with clear eyes, different eyes, to kind of keep up with the times. So part of it was for me, but part of it was for Trevecca too. I think it's just time. I've told some people that, I heard the illustration. I have no interest in turning backwards in the saddle and seeing what's behind. I want to stay forward saddle. And before I get down off the horse, I'm going to stay forward saddle. And that's what we're going to do for the next year. But by putting a date out there, it said, okay, you better decide what you're going to do with the rest of your life starting on that date. And that's why it seems to work out well for me, really.
Now, can I call you Coach E?
Absolutely.
Okay. I love it. But
back in the day,
we all did.
But I have more hair, and all y'all had out of DMase, Willie, y'all had more hair back in the day too. So I'm just saying.
Back in the day, but you have still preserved very well. You have more than the three. Everybody on the show combined at this point. So you got that going for you.
The beard's kind of.
Yeah, we may have more beard hair than you, but beside that, I would rather have the hair on top of my head. But Coach E, Mark Elliott, AD at Trevecca, you mentioned the quote, the sunset. There's no sunset. You're absolutely right, but you also said that you intend to sprint through the finish line. What does that look like for you entering into your final year?
Yeah, anytime you take an evaluation at the summertime, which is what we typically try to do, where do we fall short? What do we need to do for the next year in order to make it for the best experience for our coaches and our athletes that we possibly can? You always look back and you see deficiencies, right? So there's always deficiencies to work on. There's more money to be raised. There's facility enhancements to make. There's coaching adjustments and coaching counseling and coaching mentoring, as well as recruiting and all of those things that you have to do. Well, we're the support mechanism that comes in underneath all that. And so the sprint to the finish line there, to me, means we don't stop working. We have to make the best possible environment for our coaches and our athletes that we possibly can in order for them to be successful in the best possible way. So what are some of those things? Well, there's certainly an AD transition succession plan that we have that we've got to move forward with. There's some fundraising things we have to work forward with. There's evaluating the sustainability and validity of our programs. Long-term answers, right? A lot of short-term issues that you can decide are good decisions today, but are they good business decisions for the next 20 years? Those are the kinds of things that have to be put in place and continue to be done on every business level. So we're really no different than that. We have a business plan. We have to continue to execute.
Now, as my parents told me, you always want to leave things better than what you received. And it seems like that's your mission, is to leave Trevecca better than what you received. And you received it in a great position, but you just want to make sure the people that come in after you have more than just what you had. They have even more.
You're right. That's well said, Eric. And I will tell you this too. We have a good school, and as 102.5 The Game grew, as Trevecca grew, the city of Nashville was growing. How do you keep pace with that growth, right? And so, in order to keep pace with the growth, you have to be on your toes. You have to be nimble. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to move with trends. You guys talk about trends in NCAA life daily in your profession right now, right? You're always talking about that. Well, we're feeling that same crunch. So we hope to leave it in a better condition than we have. We certainly have made a lot of adjustments, a lot of growth, but there's more work to be done. So we continue to do that work.
Now, you were hired right as they were accepting the transition from NAIA to Division II. What were some of the difficulties in that as you took on the job?
To be honest with you, Derek, this is probably, I think maybe the thing that I'm maybe most proud of, obviously the athletes and coaches on a personal level, but on a professional level, the move from NAIA to Division II was extremely difficult because especially at that time, we were having to perform more like Division II schools than Division II schools that were already in were having to perform. We had such a high standard. There were 8 schools across the country that were making the transition at the same time. And our class has been told that was the most difficult time in order to go into Division II. So the move from NAIA to Division II was not so much how good your sports teams were. It was rather how good is your university at doing things in NCAA way. And you had to be able to prove it, right? So the documents, over 1,500 pages of documents that we had to come up with, and policy procedure manuals, compliance manuals, and the whole compliance and eligibility side of things was so strict. We literally woke up every day going, are we going to get in? Are we going to get in? We don't know. Ultimately, after 4 years, when they accepted us and we had the press conference to say that we're in, it was such a relief. We came back to the office, we sat down, we looked at each other and kind of like winked and said, now what do we do? And it was really a whole new start, a whole new reset, a whole new phase of life that we were having to develop at that point. So then, boom, in you kick in, you have to create a new conference. We created a new conference. And from there, we just took off. But yeah, to get back to your original question, Derek, that was probably the most satisfying professional thing I think we did in the 16 years.
So now let's look ahead, Coach E, because as we know, there are discussions going on daily right now about where college athletics is going from the top on down with the NIL and, Congress, they're talking about, a model that maybe will be adopted, and you have to envision, and your successor is going to have to envision where Trevecca sits in that whole atmosphere. So look ahead to Division II. Where do you see it going the next few years?
Well, Will, if I had that crystal ball, I could make a lot of money. Sure. But I think we have a decent idea of knowing where Division II is going to flesh out, right? Division I, couldn't tell you. The most recent decision for them to go 5 years of eligibility and 5 years, starting with the clock of high school graduation or 19-year-old, is going to be voted on by Division II on August the 5th. We're either going to follow their lead, or we could potentially change that 5 years and 5 years of eligibility in 5 years to look a little bit different. I think that that's going to pass for Division II. That's a big deal. On the transfer portal side of things, we have always been a transfer destination for a lot of Division I players, to give them that playing time experience that a lot of them are wanting. We've always been that, so we'll continue to do that. When you get into the NIL money, we have NIL deals, not like the Division I's do, right? Our NIL deals are, if you tweet 3 times, you get a free cup of coffee from the place that you tweet about. Those are our NIL deals, right? We're not giving people money, although it has come down to Division II, and we're going to have to either get on that bandwagon, or we're going to have to make a really hard stance and say we're not entering into that game. And as an athletic director, I got to look at my coaches and say, we're not going to enter into that game. They're going to go, what do you want me to do? So I think those questions are something to really ponder as to what you want to be, a leader and lead people in the wrong direction, or be a leader and lead them in the right direction. Those are the kinds of things that I see coming.
Mark Elliott, the athletic director at Trevecca, is our guest, and he will be retiring at the end of the season after 16 years at the helm of Trevecca. And one thing that I think I've got, a new perspective on is in watching my 2 kids have their own experience in college. Everybody's different, right? When we talk about what we talk about on our show, it's a lot of SEC. You know how it works, right? We're talking about the top of the top and who's winning championships. When you boil it down to what it's about, the experience each kid has while they're at a school is so important. And I've noticed there's more teams at Trevecca now. There's double the athletes there were about a decade ago. And you see it day in and day out, the value. So what do you take away from when you watch these kids go through Trevecca and the experience they leave with?
Really, the way I'd answer that is, we may be the last bastion of amateur athletics other than high school in the country. You guys would agree, I feel like you would, that the Division I college experience, that's no longer amateur athletics, right? They're professionals, without question. They're getting paid like that. They're getting paid more than, heck, basketball players are getting paid more than the G League minimums, for sure. So we feel like we can be the last bastion of amateur athletics. I go to Rotary clubs and I speak to them, and I love Hutch at Lipscomb, and Scott Cooley at Belmont, and Candace at Vanderbilt. But what I'll tell them is that, look, if you have $1 million and you want to give $1 million because it's on your heart to give it to intercollegiate athletics, then good for you. But if you give it to those schools, you're going to buy a point guard, maybe a half a point guard for 1 year. You give me $1 million, I turf my entire soccer field. I take care of my soccer field, lacrosse teams, flag football teams for the next 20 years. So which would you rather do? Buy a point guard for a year, or help me for 20 years?
Yeah, what's more valuable? What goes further? That's a great question, and I'm seeing it through the Division III level. I saw it on the club level with my daughter, but it just whatever the kid is experiencing, if you're in the right spot in your own environment and you're getting a lot out of it, that's really what it's all about. It's not how much am I getting paid this year or next year, but that's what it has to sort itself out at the top. But of course, at Trevecca, you've been able to put that model together. Coach E, first of all, thanks a lot for joining us. Congratulations on this announcement. We'll be following you throughout the year. We'll talk again before it's all over here. But good luck with the upcoming season, and congrats on a great run here.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me. And DMase, if you ever want some stories on Willie, I got them for you, brother.
Oh,
Absolutely.
boy, watch out. He's got a new source.
We love stories.
And believe me, he's got them. He's got them. No question about it. Mark Elliott has been our guest. Just a great guy. Like I said, one of the first people I met on the Vanderbilt campus when he was assistant coach for CM Newton. Baseball and basketball player, so near and dear to my heart. Played a little minor league baseball like me. And just an outstanding guy for first and foremost. Trevecca has hit a home run bringing him in when they did to go to Division II, and they're really on really good solid footing right now. Underrated place in our city when it comes to sports. When we come back, we'll get back to the Titans. And it is time to get this preseason going. We're going to talk O-line. Is Cam Ward going to be better protected and have a better chance to succeed with the guys in front of him this year as opposed to last year? That exact question was asked to Mike Borgonzi today. And we'll tell you what he said, and we'll give you our thoughts on it when we come back for hour number 2. Hour number 2 of DVD here on 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Connor Newt here with you. And Titans training camp is here. And We here at The Game are going to keep you in the know with all the coverage that you could hope for and a whole lot more. We'll be at practice tomorrow, and our coverage of Titans training camp is presented by Tennessee Brew Works, Parman Energy, and the Music City kickoff game. And the Music City kickoff game will be Ole Miss against Louisville at Nissan Stadium on September the 6th. So get your tickets today at NashvilleSports.com. Big press conference today to introduce the themes coming up. And it's not like we haven't hit this throughout the summer. The anticipation is always there for an NFL season, but can the Titans build on what has been a really rough patch the last couple of years? Back-to-back 3-win seasons. The over-under in Vegas is around 5.5 or 6.5 wins this year. Can they take a step forward with their second-year quarterback? And one of the things, and speaking of that, we're going to talk to Trevor Matich, longtime offensive lineman in the NFL. We'll get his take on this. But the question was asked pretty directly. How confident are you that this year Cam Ward will have a better situation in front of him with the offensive line than last year? So let's start there, and then DMase and I will take it from there.
Mike, when you first started out here today, you said that you continue to invest in the offensive line. I'm curious what your confidence level is like with the guys who are on the current roster, that your quarterback is better protected now than he was a year ago.
Yeah, I feel good right now. Like I said, we'll find out when the pads come on, though. We've added a couple guys in the draft, some in free agency. But you really won't really know until you get the pads on here. So, but I feel good about the work they put in the off season, and we'll continue to evaluate it.
So the big thing that I heard was, I like what it looks like now, but you don't know until the guys put the pads on. So first of all, Derek, what do you think is the biggest thing that changes? And you can kind of slant your answer towards the offensive line, but in your experience in general, what changes when the pads come on?
I think obviously the physicality of it all. Now, because without pads, you got to be careful. There's a way you got to practice. There's a way you got to practice with pads as well, because you don't want to hurt your teammate. But obviously, without pads, you can't go 100 miles per hour. You got to go 50 and probably a little bit less than that, because you're not getting a realistic look at how this thing is going to be. And it's very hard to when you don't have on pads. If that's why more coaches want padded practices, because they can get a better look at how the team is. And he basically said it. So to me, when you put on those pads, now we get to see you more in a game-like situation, game-like environment. You may fall and he may grab you by your pads. He may hold you. You got to get away from that. You can't do that when you don't have on pads. So that's why, let's go back to JC for a minute. That's why this whole pec thing, we should just continue to monitor it.
Yeah.
Because of what?
And for
Coach
people
said.
that may not have heard this, we addressed this in the first hour, but he's got a pectoral injury that he's been dealing with throughout OTAs. And so he has been placed on the PUP list for now, but he is considered day-to-day.
Mm-hmm. So with that being the case, yes, he likes what he's seen from his offensive line so far, but they all been in shorts and helmets. That's it. So now he has to wait to see how this thing looks once they put on the pads, and once, Franklin Myers and Jeffrey Simmons and those guys can start really leaning on you. But the problem with that is JC's not going to, are you going to get the full JC experience? Meaning, are you going to finally get the first round talent that we've been hoping for? He's been a little bit up and down. And now with this pec, how are you going to find out if he's day-to-day? I hope that he's able to come back and be ready for the first day of pads. But, that may not be the case. So how are you truly going to get an evaluation of the whole offensive line together? Because I'm sure he is a big part of what you're doing. It's not like his position is up for grabs.
Now, would you say, because I'm looking at the stats from FTN Fantasy, that right now we have a perception of Titans offensive line play as poor, right? But would you agree because the stats, at least how they do it for this one, right? There's our eye test and what we see every Sunday, and there are what the numbers show. They made some improvements from 2 years ago to last year. Agree or disagree?
I think they have, and I think a big part was Peter Skoronski and his development and who he is becoming as a player. He looks like a guy that, barring injury, he's going to be a perennial All-Pro, or a Pro Bowler, definitely. So just with that alone, I think they've gotten better. I think JC's had his moments. I think they made the right decision ultimately to put him to the right side. Dan Moore, he's been up and down. So, and like TD said, that center position, how is that going to sort of play
That's
out?
a big one.
But I do think, I don't know how much better, they are from, say, last year, because they gave up the most sacks last year. 2 years ago, I think they were in the top 2 or 3 of, sacks allowed. And then even before that. So how much better they are, I don't know. I just know from what I've seen, they are better.
Here are a couple of notes from last year of where we can start this conversation and ask, where is it going to go from here? What's realistic? And here are the quotes from FTN Fantasy's Almanac here. For a rebuilding team, the Titans' offensive line, frankly, could have been a lot worse. 17th in adjusted line yards. That's not a bad place to be. Adjusted line yards is basically the one catch-all stat that gives an overall line as a unit a grade. And so 17th out of 32 teams, okay, doesn't sound that bad. And they were 25th in that a year before. Now, they ranked 25th in adjusted sack percentage. But this is going to be something that we talk about a lot and have talked about. Cam Ward was second in the league with 21 sacks charted as being the quarterback's fault. In other words, he held on to the ball too long. He had a chance to avoid a sack and didn't. And I do think that I feel like that could be subjective to some degree. And let's take Dan Moore, right? We knew Dan Moore as the left tackle was going to be front and center. And he came in with a reputation. He's allowed a lot of sacks. Myles Garrett has had his way with him. He's not the best. They had to overpay to get him. So Dan Moore, 2025 didn't bring much clarity. He gave up 34 pressures. That was tied for 15th most in the league. Could have been worse, I guess. But while some of his high sack total was due to Ward taking forever in the pocket, Moore was beaten fairly consistently in pass protection. So it's a combination of two things. But you put together not a great left tackle with a quarterback that holds on to the ball, you end up giving up the most sacks, which they did. Cam Ward was sacked more than any quarterback in the league, 55 times.
And that's where you hope that now adding Dabo into the equation, that some of these sacks can be avoided. You talked about, the sacks that were attributed to Cam Ward. Maybe what if that's cut in half this season?
See, that I do think, and that we seem to bring this up with one of our key questions every year when we do the 10 is how many can they improve?
And that will be a question.
Yes, because they need to cut down that number.
Yeah, so if you can get Cam to cut down on half of his and say you get the offensive line to, cut down on a portion of theirs, now you're looking at a guy that took 55 sacks last year or was sacked 55 times, which led the NFL to, he's getting sacked 35 times, even though that's still a lot, I believe, but it's not what it once was. That shows growth, not only in the offensive line, but I think that shows growth in the quarterback. Now, he can't be avoiding the sack and then, throwing an interception. So there are a lot of the things, that to add on to that. But I think if a lot of this hinges on how they figure out the center position. Again, the whole, Cushenberry thing, I still can't understand why they chose to move on from him. I know he was injured.
Right.
I get that part. Maybe that was the sole reason, but he was healthy enough. Did he finish the season?
He played 15 games.
Yeah, he played 15 games last year. He finished the season. And you didn't have a replacement, a guy ready to go. Now Slater is there. He may take, he may win the center position, but
and then have a guy named Andre James,
Yeah.
who Tehran mentioned yesterday as a guy
Exactly.
that they brought in, and he's going to have a chance. Austin Schlotman,
Mhm.
I forget how you say it. He had this whole discussion about that. I should know by now, but they brought him from the Giants.
Mhm.
What do you have there? And then you have the rookie, Pat Coogan, center for the national champions
Mhm.
at Indiana. Can you find one out of those three? I mean, so you talk about having competition. They've at least brought in some guys,
Yeah.
and at the guard position too, to replace Zeitler, they have competition there. So can you find two guys that you can live with amongst that whole group? Guys that you've been trying to groom from the back end
Mhm.
and developmental side, guys you just drafted, lower picks. But that's where drafting is so big. Can you find somebody there?
You're going to have to at that right guard and that center position. Dan Moore has to play better. But again, if we can cut down, you know, half of the sacks that he gave up, and then Cam the other half, then I think you'll be in a better position. But that's a big if. But again, they have to figure out the center position. You got to figure out the right guard position, and then you just got to hope that whatever's going on with JC, that he's back sooner rather than later. Because again, these are critical reps that he's going to be missing. I know he'll be out there. I know he'll be watching. I know he'll be in the meeting rooms watching the film. I get all of that, but nothing beats being on the field and doing it, like actually doing what we talked about in the meeting room. So he's gonna have. I wonder how they're gonna bring him along.
And the real thing is too, you don't just need 5. You need those
You
backups
need about
too.
7. Yes.
And so let's see what it looks like as we move forward here. Let's end on the good note here. And Mike Borgonzi was asked about Peter Skoronski. FTN Fantasy had him ranked as they picked up the 5th-year option. Of course, there's a contract negotiation going on right now behind the scenes, but he was the only guard in the National Football League last year to be top 5 in both pressure rate allowed, in other words, he pass protected well, and blown block rate, and that's on the running plays. So he grades really well. He's top 5 in the metrics, at least at FTN Fantasy. I don't know how that coincides with some of the other ones, Next Gen Stats and Pro Football Focus and ESPN's way of metrics, but Peter Skoronski is trending in the right direction. He's got a lot going for him. Borgonzi said today he is hopeful to get a deal done. They've had positive conversations, but nothing to report yet. But I feel like that's going to get done eventually. So hopefully he can be the anchor that strengthens everybody to his left and to his right. You got to hope.
Yeah, you hope so. So, I mean, that's going to be an ongoing question until it is resolved, the whole, signing Peter Skoronski, because I'm sure they want to do it sooner rather than later. Because again, if, the metrics are what they say they are, then they predict this young man to get better next year. And you're going to have, which means you're going to have to pay more.
And that is, Borgonzi said that. He goes, I think we've got a lot of players. He mentioned Latham, too. He's a guy that he's been here. He's under 25, and we feel like there's another level that they can get to. That will be essential across the board to develop the roster as a whole. All right, we've got a linchpin offensive lineman on our show, and that is Trevor Matich. He's going to join us next. We'll get his thoughts on the direction of the offensive line and the Titans. We'll touch on some college football things as well. You're listening to DVD here on 102.5 The Game. Ooh, pressure. Back here on DVD, I've got to name the year, and the choices are, once again, Connor?
99, 96, 95, 93, 90.
I'm going to say that this is 1996. Gosh, dang it.
You are 1 year off, sir.
Dang it. That's tough.
Willie, 1 year off. 1 year off.
I'm falling behind. I'm 1 for 3. One for 3.
You got to pick it up.
Baseball,
you got what,
though,
2 more?
Baseball, 333 is pretty good. Basketball, not as good. And then other sports, it's not good at all. But anyway, it's time to talk to Trevor Matich. I don't know if he would have nailed that one or not, but Trevor, 90s music, the specific year, I'm floundering right now.
Yeah, let me give you a specific year, 93.
Okay, so 93. That one was, so what did we say? That was 95 for
Yeah,
Mariah
that was
Carey?
95.
95, yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's get
Okay.
another. So you want one, Trevor? You want to see if you can get one? Maybe you do better than me.
I
You
think
got
I'll put
another
an
one?
extra one
Okay.
on there. So
Sure, let's do it.
All right, let's give
Kyle's
Trevor a
about to
shot.
give it to you.
So he's going to pull this up. We're talking Titans training camp presented by Tennessee Brew Works, Parman Energy, and Music City kickoff game. We're going to talk some football with Trevor, but we're going to also test his mettle here for 90s music from DMase and quizzing what year was this song. Let's see how quick Connor can pull the trigger.
So it's not good enough to guess the decade, huh?
It would be great if we just had to do the decade.
Exactly.
I gave
That'd
DMase
be
a little
easy.
more leeway. I gave him 2 decades.
Here it is.
Okay. So we have some Oasis here. Right. So this is England's big victory
Yes.
song for the World Cup. All right. So what are the years again, Connor, for Trevor?
99, 96, 95, 93, 90.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 99 because that sounds a little more sophisticated and, quite frankly, good than a lot of music that was earlier in the 90s. So I'll guess 99.
What would you say, Willie?
Let's see. That would be, I'm going to say that is 95. All right. Okay. All
there
right.
you go.
Trevor knocked out one of the choices for me, so that helped narrow it down. But we
You
will.
and I are a team.
That's right. A pretty good
We're
team.
a team. We're like Speed Racer and Racer X. You know, we make sure one or the other wins every time.
Yes, that's okay. As long as one of us gets to win, that's key. So Trevor, let's talk. Derek and I were breaking down just what to look for with the offensive line for the Titans. We know how important it is to help Cam Ward out. And one of the stats that we just noted was there were a number of sacks, and you know he was sacked 55 times. At least in FTN Fantasy, they tracked 21 of the sacks as the quarterback's fault. In other words, he held the ball too long. I guess there's probably some subjectivity in that. But if you look at the guys up front, what are your biggest concerns? What are the keys to you to have better offensive line play than they've had the last couple of years?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the big questions in training camp, right? And my concern is that the offensive line will be the drag on this Titans team in 2026. It doesn't have to be that way, but there's a potential for there to be a gaping hole at right guard and at right tackle if J.C. Latham either plays hurt or is not able to play because he's on PUP right now, physically unable to perform list with a pec injury. And the thing of it is, pecs that are tweaked can go from being tweaked to ripped apart with one bad angle. You know, if you're just doing, for example, bench press and it's all controlled, that's great. But in football, you're not pressing against a bar that's in a very controlled space and angle. You're pushing against a guy that's moving to all kinds of different angles and swatting at your arm at the same time. And it's easy. Well, it's not easy. It's a risk that a catastrophic injury can occur with that kind of thing. And we found out that it looks like he was fighting this thing since OTAs of last year. And so I'm very worried about this offensive line. And because everything else is really upgraded.
I mean, I love the pass catchers. I love the running backs. You know, the defense, I think, is going to be more than fine. But it's the right side of the offensive line, assuming that center Austin Schlottman starts and performs at a steady level, which we'll see if he can do it as the full-time starter. But especially at right guard and what happens at right tackle, to me, it could be a real problem. And what these guys need to do is kind of what they did at the end of last year. I mean, it was a tale of two seasons for Cam at quarterback. It was also sort of a tale of two seasons for the offensive line, where against the better defenses earlier in the season, they didn't look very good at times. As the season wore on and as they started to face just normal NFL defenses, they got better. And a big reason was that they just played together and they just got better. And that's part of the key for an offensive line. If you ask a coach, he'll tell you that he would rather have 5 guys on the offensive line that are pretty good, but that have played together for a long time, than 5 guys who are extremely talented but don't play well together. And so really the biggest key to this offensive line to performing at a steady level is that whoever they end up starting at center and right guard, and really right tackle, I assume it'll be J.C. Latham, that those guys stay healthy, and without a standard of their being super talented, if they can be super steady and play together well. And if they don't, guys, I'm worried that will be the anchor on this team.
Now, Trevor, what do you think of Pat Coogan? Because, and I know we've talked about him with you when he got drafted and everything, but he can be one of those guys that you draft later on, and he ends up being a day one starter. We've seen that before. Later round pick on the offensive line, especially at the center position, ends up being a starter and plays a long time. But what did you see, or what have you seen in Coogan that you believe that could win him ultimately the job as a starting center with the Titans?
Well, what'll win him the job, Derek, is being in the right place, doing the right thing, and forcing the defender to break him down every single time, instead of using the wrong technique and misreading a stunt or something like that. Because he is a big enough guy at 6'5", about 310, and he's strong enough. He needs to build more NFL caliber strength, in his body, as really most offensive linemen do when they come into the league. But his best trait in college was that his football IQ is off the charts. He didn't get fooled by college stunts, by college slants, by college blitzes. He knew where to be. He knew how to make the calls, and he was not just in the right spot, he got everybody else in the right spot. He had great leadership. He was incredibly tough. And remember that he was named the MVP of the Rose Bowl.
Yes.
As an offensive lineman. And really that was a nod to the entire offensive line. And he was just the guy that was the leader of that group. So, he, I think, has a tremendous future as a steady starter who doesn't make mistakes and an outstanding leader. The question will be how quickly he can come up to speed to the NFL game and the degree to which he's ready physically to handle the speed and the strength of the guys in front of him. But ultimately, I think he's got a really good future.
We're talking about Pat Coogan. He was the 6th round pick. They also have a 5th round offensive lineman named Fernando Carmona out of Arkansas. We're talking to Trevor Matich. So, Trevor, as I hear you talk about this, it's been a long time since the Titans have hit on a draft pick from those rounds. Like, for example, way back when Derek was playing, one of the keys to their Super Bowl team, they had a guy named Kevin Long, who was the 7th round pick, but they plugged him in day one at center, and he did the job. And he had some really good players around him. But boy, it's such a boost to a team when you get hit on a pick. What are the keys for a rookie offensive lineman that isn't, like you said, just built like a house and easily able to be plugged in physically? They're going to have to overachieve to get in there. What are the keys to making that quick transition?
They need to understand what success actually looks like. They're used to success being locking onto a college defensive lineman or linebacker and driving them 5 or 6 yards. And then when they reach for the running back, drive them onto their back and then laughing about it in the film the next day with their teammates. That's what they're used to success being. Those kinds of guys very rarely have that kind of success in the NFL, but they don't need to. What they need to do is eat up a defender and let the running back flow and cut. And so what ends up happening is, for example, if it's a zone run to the right, your right guard will take a step to the right. He'll match up with that defensive lineman, and then he'll push, right? He might not drive him down the field, but the key is to keep your balance, to keep squared up on him, and keep pushing. Now, I want you to imagine this. If you're the running back, and you're right behind that guy, and you go a little farther outside, the defender reacts to that, then you cut right inside of him, then that rookie offensive lineman, your right guard, did what he needed to do. The problem is, if the rookie offensive lineman ends up behind the defender, and now he's pushing him outside from the inside, from the running back's perspective, you have the defender in one hole, and then your own guard on the inside hole, and you've got a huge area where you could have run that is now eaten up by two guys. And so this is what you need to understand as a young offensive lineman, what success looks like. You don't need to drive people all over creation. You need to stay squared up on them, stay on your feet, and just keep pushing and let the running back make you look good.
Now, Trevor, Willie did mention the sack ratio that, the offensive line or Cam Ward was a part of. Him being the cause of the sack, or the offensive line being the cause of the sack. And with Dabo coming in, how much do you think he can help? Because, listen, whether they get, 20 times better than they were last year, I thought last year was better than the previous year, but they all got to match this up with what Dabo wants and what he sees in his offense. So how much can he help Cam not take so many sacks, and then adversely help the offensive line in the process?
Yeah, the key is first and second down, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if you get third and long, the defense gets to pin their ears back and just go after the quarterback, and that happened too many times to the Titans. So they need to run the ball better. That's what they need to do. But I think getting so many pass catchers at three different positions helps Cam, because it allows him more weapons and better matchups in more places, so that he can get the ball out more quickly. And when I say three positions, wide receiver, which is actually several different positions by itself, tight end, and running back. I mean, at running back, when you look at, for example, Tajay Spears, it's kind of under the radar. You guys may have talked about it, but last year he caused more missed tackles in space than any other running back after a catch in the NFL. He's really good at catching the ball and then making something happen in space. Michael Carter is another running back who catches really well. Nicholas Singleton, the draft choice this year out of Penn State, he runs a 4.35 40. From the backfield, but also as a receiver to create matchup problems. That gives Cam Ward not just an outlet, but a playmaking possibility every time he can get them the ball, right? And then at tight end, I think Gunnar Helm, you're going to see him kind of rise up. But I think Daniel Bellinger, the free agent tight end they brought in, he's been talked about as a blocker, but not much of a pass catcher. Well, he's not very fast, but he does have the ability to catch 4 or 5 balls a game and keep the chains moving, keep even with the chains. I mean, they've got lots of weapons that Cam can get the ball to quickly, as long as Cam understands where to go with it. And one of the features of a Brian Daboll offense is that it is complex for the defense to recognize and read, but it's far more simple for the quarterback and receivers than most other passing styles like West Coast offense. And so these are all things that give Cam Ward more ability to get the ball out to a better matchup in more places across the field than he had last year. And that will help the offensive line look better than they might be.
So, Trevor, I thought today Mike Borgonzi and Robert Saleh were both careful not to set really any concrete expectations. They want to build a foundation. They both say there's a long way to go. They're looking for those small gains. But they did admit that they're feeling some urgency, especially Borgonzi. He's not in his first year anymore. They're back-to-back 3-win seasons. People want to see some progress. So how optimistic are you that overall it will look better, significantly better, even if that's just 6 wins instead of 3?
I think that will look. I think the team will be significantly better this year, even if Cam Ward only takes an incremental step forward. And the reason is that they have improved the pass catchers, the tight end, running back, and wide receiver so much, and because of what they've done on the defensive line. This, to me, is the potential to be the bell cow leading force that defines who the Titans are this year. I love this defensive line, not because they have a whole bunch of superstars outside of Jeffrey Simmons, but because they have a whole lot of guys that can fly up the field and be disruptive behind the line, and they can rotate them in a rotation to keep everybody fresh, including Jeffrey Simmons, keep him fresh. And so, I think that just that alone will create more negative plays by the defense against the opposing offense. It will create more turnovers for the Titans, more takeaways. Just that alone is going to help the Titans tremendously as this offensive line kind of gets up to speed and grows together. But I think, guys, in training camp, especially early, it's going to look really bad to fans. And the reason is that this defensive line is not going to give the offensive line a break at all. They're going to fly upfield. And it's hard enough if you're a good, steady offensive line that's played together a lot to deal with that early in camp. And as time goes on, then the offensive line comes together and all that. But right now, with the state of the right side of this offensive line especially, the defensive line of the Titans, I think, is going to absolutely humiliate the offensive line repeatedly early. And from a standpoint of an offensive lineman kind of dealing with this, it has to do with the fact that all the D lineman has to do is come flying up the field in this scheme. The offensive lineman has to take very precise steps. He has to be in a very precise spot. And if he's just a beat late, his footwork will break down, and then everything goes crazy. And so, I think that we talk a lot about how we need to let Cam Newton have the space to make mistakes in camp and the space to look like he's making mistakes, but he really isn't, because he's doing what he was told, and we don't know what he's being told. Like, he might be told to throw the ball down the field into double coverage to the rookie receiver running deep down the field, or young receiver, because we want to see if he can make that play, right? And so the fans video that on the sideline, and it looks like Cam made a dumb decision throwing the ball into traffic down the field that gets picked off, and that's terrible for Cam. But that's not terrible for Cam. He did what he was told to do because the coaches were trying to find something else about the receivers, not about Cam. So anyway, but those fans are going to record with their phones and put on social media how the defensive line is crushing the offensive line early. And I don't think that's going to be an accurate representation of what this offensive line will be in week 1 of the regular season. But, man, it's going to be hard for them to deal with that early on.
Trevor, we will try to keep that perspective when there's ugly practices, because you just laid it out. What's going to happen? It's just a natural reaction, but we will keep that in mind. Trevor, thanks a lot for the perspective. As always, we'll study up as a tandem, Racer X and Speed Racer, and better luck in 90s trivia next week.
Absolutely. Thanks, Willie.
All right. Trevor Matich joining us here on DVD. When we come back, we're going to take a little outside perspective, throw you a change up, and give you what we're going to try to do throughout camp is check in on another big league story that has something to do, some connection to the Titans that Titans fans are going to find interesting. And we're going to talk about it when we come back. It'll be the New England Patriots. What do they have for an encore? After all the drama with Mike Vrabel, the rising star in Drake May, who Titans fans hope is setting the pathway for a guy like Cam Ward. But the Patriots were that team that made the big jump last year. What do they got this year? Let's talk about when we come back. And then at 5 o'clock, we'll talk about Robert Saleh in his second tenure as a head coach. What does that mean? What do second-year guys' track records look like in the NFL? Stay tuned. We've got a whole lot more coming here on DVD. Back here on DVD, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Connor Newton here with you. We are setting the table for training camp, and our change of pace topic is coming up here. Our NFL topic that Titans fans will like. We're going to talk about the Patriots and Mike Vrabel here in a minute. But we're also playing music trivia in the 90s. What year was this? That I know the song. I played this. I had it like in a CD or something. I'm going to go 1996 on that one. Boom.
There you go.
2 in a row. I'm coming back.
Ah,
I'm coming back, people.
all right.
I had missed a couple. I'm making a nice run here. More to come in the 5 o'clock hour. DMase providing the music today. Good call, DMase, on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Going back to the old library there.
Mhm.
The game text line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Just call or text us be a part of our conversation. 615-737-1025. We're broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Now, I was listening to one of my favorite NFL podcasts is the MMQB, Albert Breer, Connor Orr. We've had them both on the show in the past and probably will again in the future. They had a really good podcast this week on some of the big storylines going into the upcoming season. And one of them, of course, is the Patriots came out of nowhere. Nobody would have predicted last year at this time in July. We're still in July, that it's going to be the Seahawks and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. You would have said, what are you doing? Where have you been? Have you been to the Aaron Rodgers cave? Are you getting some illegal substances? Nobody would have predicted that. But now we're talking about what happens next after both of those teams had great seasons. Of course, the Seahawks won the whole thing. But let's focus on Mike Vrabel and the Patriots. We know about the drama and Diana Rossini and all of that stuff, and it's hard to define how that's going to be an effect or not an effect on their season. But here's what Albert Breer said about some of the challenges that they have. I'm going to give it to you in a second. But so, DMase, off the top of your head, you've seen teams that come out of nowhere that now they're on the scene for the next 5 years.
Mhm.
But you still have an AFC that has Pat Mahomes, who's coming off a big injury. Everything went wrong for the Chiefs last year, but they're back. I can't imagine that they just have nothing to say about anything. You have the Ravens.
Mhm.
You have Joe Burrow healthy with the Bengals. You got a lot of contenders there. It'll be different. So what are your first thoughts about what the Patriots do for an encore?
It's going to be, my first thought is it's going to be difficult. Not to say that they will not make the playoffs. I think they will if they stay healthy, but that's the big part. But I just think it's going to be difficult for them because Denver, another year in Deshaun Payton. And we're just talking about I'm talking about AFC. Just AFC.
Let's focus on the AFC. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got Sean Payton another year with Denver. Miami, they may not be good, but can you beat Miami twice in one season? Buffalo's always going to be there. Has Buffalo gotten better? We don't know what the Jets will look like. Their schedule is a little bit more daunting than it was last year.
It's got to be, right?
Yeah.
It was one of the easiest schedules of all time
So
last year.
this year, the first 4 games of the season, they playoff teams. Seattle, did Pittsburgh make the playoffs? I think they did.
They did.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, and Buffalo. So
Right
there, the first 4 games.
I don't think they had 4 games that were that difficult, at least on paper, all of last year, 4 in a row like that.
Exactly. So you're talking about opening up your season with 4 playoff teams right off the bat. That's going to be difficult. And then, not to mention, can you stay healthy? They were one of the healthier teams last year. Can that happen 2 years in a row? You hope it does. But those things, when you're not healthy, factor into some of the wins or the losses that you may have during the season.
They had a lot of rookies contribute last year. They were among the teams that had the most percentage of snaps. I think it was 21%, top 5 in percentage of snaps taken by rookies. So they got a lot of production from those guys. That was a little bit unexpected. They had a big jump from Drake May, as we know. You mentioned they stayed injury-free. They had a very easy schedule. They also got mileage out of the Robert Spillanes, the Harold Landry's, guys that were ex-Titans, other guys who had, had the Vrabel flavor. And it worked. Everything worked out great. but it may not go as easily this year. This is what Albert Breer from MMQB had to say about the challenges. And he brought up an interesting team, and we'll get to that in a minute.
I like that they were aggressive in fixing some things. Like I think that some of the things that affected the Commanders in year 2 with Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels, like are in play here, right? The schedule is tougher. They had great injury luck last year. Like that generally doesn't happen 2 years in a row. And like they are older in spots, and that was, I think, what really hurt the Commanders last year was they hung on to some guys, and some of the guys came back and like got hurt or weren't the same. And so like you are relying now on some older guys, Harold Landry on the edge, Robert Spillane as an off-ball linebacker, Carlton Davis opposite Christian Gonzalez at corner, AJ Brown now as an older receiver, Morgan Moses, at right tackle, although you drafted Caleb Lomu, so you have, a backstop there. So like, I think, you look like what I do like is that this isn't just them running it back and that they were able to kind of move some pieces around so the team looks a little different than it did a year ago, which I think is key. I think Drake takes another step. Again, I love his makeup, love his talent, and I think the ceiling for him is he could be the best player in football someday. I don't think it's gonna happen this year, but he could be the best player in football someday. And so like I think, it's just kind of it's the same thing I said with Drake, which is like you may be battling some forces that didn't exist last year, but there should be incremental improvement in a lot of different areas.
So there's Albert Breer's take. He mentioned the Commanders. And so I was thinking, of course, I think the biggest reason the Commanders took a big step back after having that great year under with Jaden Daniels quarterbacking and Dan Quinn as the coach. Daniels got hurt. That's the easy answer, right? But other things went wrong as well. So could that happen to the Patriots? And maybe Drake May is just so good that he overcomes whatever the schedule challenges present, the injury challenges present. Maybe Drake May is that good. But do you buy that?
I think Drake May is going to be a hell of a quarterback. Will he ever be the best player in the league? I don't know. Maybe not. But I know.
So you're not ready to put him as elite yet?
No. That's
because he's got AJ Brown now.
Yes, but he has to be able to prove it with AJ Brown. Philadelphia was a Super Bowl team without AJ Brown. AJ Brown got there along with Saquon Barkley. They ended up winning the Super Bowl. No, they didn't win with AJ. They brought in Saquon. They ended up winning the next following year. Now AJ goes to New England. Now they have to prove that they can win with an addition like AJ Brown. It's not to say it's automatically going to happen. There are a lot of things that has to happen for them to ultimately get, to reach their goal and to win the Super Bowl. But if you're just talking about the quarterback, I think he has that type of talent. Now, again, he added each to another receiver. He got a new receiver. Hell, he has 2 new receivers, I believe. The other kid from Romeo Dobbs from Green Bay. And then you have AJ Brown, obviously coming over from Philadelphia. So you have to get up to speed with those 2 guys. And now these are your number 1 and your number 2 wide receivers. So if you can't get that right, if that struggles somewhat, it's going to show. And your defense better be good enough to sustain the team while you're filling out, how to play with AJ and how to play with Romeo Dobbs together and how they fit and mesh in his offense. Not to say it won't work, but that type of thing, typically with the teams you're going to play at the beginning of the season, that stuff is going to show up. It's just how long does it show up? And is it at times where you need a play and then you end up misfiring?
Building off of a surprisingly good season sometimes is harder than you might think. We'll see how the Patriots do. Mike Vrabel, of course, is head coach for a second team, just like Robert Saleh.
Mm-hmm.
What does Robert Saleh have? That's going to be our topic in our number 3. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about issues for a coach with his second run being in the NFL as the head man. Stay tuned. We're coming up. DMase, Vigan, and Donick embarking on the 5 o'clock hour here on this Tuesday. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Connor Dude here with you. Adam Vingan is on vacation. He'll be back with us on Monday. Titans started training camp today. Everybody reported. Practice tomorrow morning. Everybody will have their eyes on the Titans to see what Robert Saleh can do with this bunch. Back-to-back 3-win seasons. Can they move up? And our coverage of Titans training camp is presented by Tennessee Brew Works, Parman Energy, and the Music City kickoff game. Tennessee Brew Works is locally brewed, community-driven, and the official craft beer of the Titans off-season and preseason coverage here on 102.5 The Game. Now, we just got done talking about Mike Vrabel. He is a coach on his second team, second tenure as coach in the NFL. It is really not as common as you might think. A lot of coaches get one shot, and that's it. There's a few coaches that get the one shot. They stay there forever, like Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin, and that is a rare breed these days. But Robert Saleh got the gig. We know it didn't go well for the Jets, so he feels very fortunate to have a second chance. He got asked directly today at the press conference, but how does it feel to get the second chance? And what did you learn? Why do you think it'll be better the second time around? Here's what he had to say.
Robert, you're one of 10 coaches going into these camps. New this year, second chance. In building your staff, working through the off season, as you get to camp, how much do you draw from that first time around to fix maybe missteps and just the simple thing of learning what you did before and how you can do something better as you try to make this one last?
No, for sure. I think it's natural maturation, right? I was fortunate enough with the Jets to get exposed to a lot of things that you're just not prepared for, no matter how much you think you're prepared. And, going through OTAs and here our first training camp, and already been exposed to it, know exactly what we want to talk about, know what changes we're making, which we have. We've made significant changes from my first go around, and, just the messaging to the players, the way we communicate with the players, all of it's kind of grown since my first year. Just a completely different coach from my first year as a head coach to now. So, and truth be told, year after year, it's going to change again. Always going to look inward. Always going to try to debrief my daily procedure and process, and make sure that I'm always trying to maximize who I am to give my best self to the players. But it's part of the natural maturation of just being exposed to the job.
That's Robert Saleh earlier today. So it sounds very reasonable. You have experience. You got thrown into the fire in the New York market. It was a disaster. It didn't go well. There were a lot of things working against him, but his defenses were very good. But he feels like he's learned a lot. He used the term natural maturation. He thinks he's a different, better coach having gone through that. It sounds reasonable. So your thoughts on that, Derek? Because then we're going to get to the numbers on how often it works for somebody in his shoes.
I think it does sound reasonable. You hope that, a coach like Saleh, after his first go around, you learn from, the good things as well as, what went wrong, and you try to adjust moving forward. If indeed, you ever get that opportunity to get a head coaching job again. Even if you don't, you still try to find ways, because if it doesn't work here, which I pray it does, and I believe it will, but he'll get another job as a defensive coordinator. So it's what things can I take with me, and how can I grow from each situation, whether it be from a defensive coordinator to a head coach, from a head coach to a defensive coordinator, and now from a defensive coordinator to a head coach again. What can I take from those experiences that is going to make me a better coach, period, whether I am a head coach or if I'm a defensive coordinator? I'm still in a position where I got to lead a group or everyone. So I think what he said is, I could see it happening. Has it happened a lot in the league? I mean, we'll go through the numbers, but ultimately, I think in all of this, you got to have the guy underneath center. You have to. And if you have the guy underneath center, it takes a little bit of the pressure off of you to try to make everything right. Because listen, just think, when Tom Brady became Tom Brady, how much pressure was taken off of certain individuals because he was that dude. A lot of it is.
Tons.
Yeah.
It makes your job easier. So that goes without saying. If Cam Ward makes a big jump, that's going to make Robert Saleh's job tons easier. But here are the numbers for how historically second-time coaches do well in the second try. Now, so far, so good for Mike Vrabel. So we know there are success stories. But the numbers that we're about to share with you might surprise you. Definitely surprised me. The Indy Star did a study for about 20 years, 1998 to 2018. So that's DMase basically starting off with the Tennessee Oilers. That's right on the verge of the Titans' rise, right? 99, the Super Bowl year, et cetera, just to give you a time frame there. First-time coaches posted a cumulative winning percentage of 490 during that 20-year span. Those with previous NFL head coaching experience had only a 447 winning percentage. And during that 20-year period, 19 coaches were rehired. And of those 19 coaches, only 7 had an improved winning percentage the second time. So 7 out of 19. And 10 had a winning percentage below 386. So, learning from your first go-round, it's not an automatic formula for success. And there's so many variables, right? It's who's your quarterback? What are the injuries? There's a lot of things that can make you look good or not good as the coach. And we know Robert Saleh is not inheriting a loaded roster. So you're probably going to hear a lot of barking if it doesn't go well. Like, well, they lost in New York, so why would you think it's going to be any different here? But I still am optimistic that what he's saying is true, that you, in general in life, experience and going through tough times hopefully makes you better because of it.
Yeah, and
I'm curious why the numbers don't line up that way, though.
I'm not sure. I'm sure if they did a real in-depth breakdown and gave us everything, I'm sure a big factor would possibly or can possibly be injuries in their circumstances, or not having that dude underneath center. Again, he doesn't need to be an all-pro, but he needs to be able to quarterback your team to wins. So maybe that was some of the reasons why coaches on their second go around didn't fare as well, or whatnot, is that when I get into that next once I get into that next seat, what is around me and how long is it going to take me to get this team to a point where they're going to be consistently winning? Because over the last couple of years, we've seen coaches fired left and right after 1 or 2 years. And I'm not just talking about here. So are owners giving coaches the runway to better their team, or are they coming in saying, listen, that
we
runway
know
is
Amy
short.
Adams has had a short runway.
Exactly.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's her track record.
So if you believe you have that coach, and now listen, he has to show progression as you continue to go. But if you believe you have that coach, you got to give him the runway to build the team the way the organization envisioned it, and allow that team to then start winning. Because again, do I expect the Titans to be a playoff team this year? No. I think they could be a surprise team, but I wouldn't put, all my money on it. But I think after that, that's when, you're going to start to see whether this team is going to get better or not. And will Saleh, Babel, and even Borgazzi have the runway to allow this team to grow into what it's going to be, or what we want it to be as fans?
The FTN Almanac, that is really analytics based, they do an essay on each team, and they did, and this has got nothing to do with analytics, but they pointed out what he was dealing with in the New York market that will likely be very different here. Now, first and foremost, the Jets have been traditionally a team full of chaos, right? And that's in the backdrop of everything. And on top of that, they brought in Aaron Rodgers, who brings a ton of drama and attention too. And of course, he got hurt right away. So he had a year where he got hurt and his season was done. And then when he came back, it was just as chaotic for different reasons. So he had to deal with that. Then you had who's going to run the offense and how do you cater to Aaron Rodgers? And a lot of decisions were made based on that I'm not sure Robert Saleh had full control over all of that. It's like you're trying to please Aaron Rodgers.
Mhm.
And remember, there was that whole thing where Aaron Rodgers wasn't there for OTAs, and Robert Saleh is trying to answer all those questions. So those things will not be there. It's got a relatively calmer, at least beginning, as he starts in Tennessee. Do you buy that?
Yeah, I
It's
think
just less
so.
of a circus.
I think so because when you take on being a head coach on any New York team, any one of them, basketball, baseball, football, it doesn't matter. There's a certain spotlight that is on you that isn't on just about 90% of the other teams in your profession. So when you go to the Jets, you think I got to win now. You got these first round picks, bring in a quarterback. I got to win now. And you don't win. And now you got to sort of, because you've put all your eggs in that basket, at times you got to capitulate to that. Because that's your guy that's supposed to get you to where you want to go. And he's not available. And you put all these other guys in place because of that guy. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, I can't coach the way I want to coach because I got to try to win games. I got to do whatever to win games. And ultimately it didn't work.
Saleh today talked about how he looked inward and he's asked himself, what would I have done differently? Where can I be better individually as a coach? But here are some of the knocks that people have brought up on his tenure with the Jets that go beyond Rodgers. But this first one is related to Rodgers. Of course, remember he didn't make it through the next season that Rodgers was healthy, but clearly had a drop off. There was a lot of drama when Rodgers was there, and that's part of the reason he got fired. Critics have said, well, Rodgers didn't create too much drama last year under Mike Tomlin. They weren't a great team, but they got to the playoffs, and Rodgers was relatively quiet compared to the craziness that was stirred up the year before. Is that on Saleh?
I think it is on.
Because there was
I don't know. You know what?
You're given in New York, you're given a platform to complain hugely, right? And if just one reporter gets you on the right day, there's so many of them. And Rodgers wasn't the only one, but the knock was he kind of lost the locker room.
And I don't know if you blame Saleh, if you blame the players, you just blame everybody in general. But you didn't have no problems with Tomlin because Tomlin demands the respect. The Pittsburgh Steelers organization demands the respect to anybody that walks in that building. Why? Because we've won 5, 6 Super Bowls without you. And we will win more without you. So while you're here, you have to, be a part of the team. Because of the circumstance in New York, and maybe you could say Saleh he had nothing to do with it because the owner wanted that. So Saleh has to take it on. And when the owner wants something, you got to take it on. Are you ever right? Are you ever going to be right? Because if it goes wrong, you can't blame the owner for bringing in this person or changing what I thought I envisioned. I think it's going to be different here because one, the pressure and the spotlight isn't on them now. It's not. And I think where this team is, even though they want to win, the expectations, I think, across the board, when you really talk about competing, like for a Super Bowl, they realistically know they're not there yet.
I'm going to ask the listeners to maybe help me out on this one because it's easy to say, well, Vrabel is doing well in his second go-round with another team. But he won here in Tennessee.
Yes.
Sean Payton won a lot for the Saints, obviously, before he became the coach in Denver, and he's winning in Denver. Pete Carroll has won in a couple places. I'm curious. Now, Pete Carroll might be a good example to start, but this question, coaches that didn't do so well the first go-round but got it right the second time, what does that list look like? Because we're going to go through some other things that didn't go well for the Jets and ask ourselves, will it be better here? 615-737-1025. Do you think Robert Saleh 2.0 will be a success? Will he be a better head coach here than he was with the Jets? We want to hear from you. 615-737-1025. We continue our discussion next here on DVD. Now, this is an easy one here. I got this one.
Okay.
It's a giveaway in the title. George Michael, it's called Freedom 90, so it's got to be 1990.
There you go. It's an easy one, Willie.
I'm coming back. I'm
It's an
making
easy
a
one, Willie.
comeback.
That was a layup right there.
That was a
Willie.
layup.
That was a layup right there.
So I'm doing better in our guess the year of DMase's jukebox today. 90s. He gave me 5 years. I had to hit the year. I missed a couple early. I'm really upset at myself, but I'm recovering.
redeeming
I'm recovering.
yourself.
I'm
Yeah.
coming back. We're talking about Robert Saleh trying to come back from a tough tenure with the Jets. Now, Robert Saleh got fired in his 4th year. He went 4-13, 7-10, 7-10, 2-3. But he had the chaos of the Jets. He had a quarterback situation that went really, really bad. Zach Wilson was not a good quarterback. He's still not a good quarterback. It's not like he went somewhere else and did better to where you could say, well, so-and-so did a better job with him. No, Zach Wilson was just not good. He did have good defenses. And I thought maybe arguably his best job, he went 7-10 the year that Aaron Rodgers blew out the Achilles on like the first series of the season. But he didn't make it through the next year. What did he learn? Can it be better? I was looking for examples, DMase, of coaches that did better the second go around after not hitting it big, not building a good reputation. And Pete Carroll got a job as a young head coach in 1994 with the Jets. He went 6-10 and they canned him. It all comes back to the Jets, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Then he went to then he succeeded Bill Parcells with the Patriots, and he did reasonably well between Parcells and Belichick. He got the Patriots to the playoffs 2 out of the 3 years that they weren't great. 10-6, 9-7, 8-8. And then when he got to the Seahawks, it took a year or two to get going, but he had the famous Legion of Boom run where he won a Super Bowl, lost a second Super Bowl in kind of freakish fashion, the interception by Malcolm Butler right at the they would have won, they could have won a second one. But Pete Carroll was definitely better as he got the extra chances. Titans fans are hoping that Robert Saleh has the same kind of dynamic here. We want to hear from you. 615-737-1025. Do you think the second time around is going to go well for Robert Saleh? Saleh 2.0. Let me go to Doug on our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Doug, welcome.
Doug has left us. He hung up.
Come on, Doug. I was making a big build up to Doug coming on. All right. Hopefully Doug will call back. 615-737-1025. You can call or text us on that. Here are a couple other things that are criticisms of Saleh the first go around. Struggled as a game day coach. This is right out of FTN Almanac. Fans grouse constantly about poor clock management and a lack of in-game adjustments. His teams would often start out slow, and too often they'd fall into non-competitive games very, very early. Now, I would say that second part might have to do with your quarterback, right? He had some really brutal names that he tried to make it work with, especially the year that Aaron Rodgers got hurt. He tried Zach Wilson again, even though it just was not going to happen. He tried Joe Flacco. He had all kinds of guys. But the clock management thing and in-game adjustments, I do think we saw this with Mike Vrabel. He did get better at that as he got more experience on the sideline.
Yeah, I think when you are, it's basically trial by error because there's not a manual, pamphlet, or anything to actually walk you through being a first-time head coach. And we saw that firsthand with Vrabel as well as with Callahan. And both struggled, but one found a way out of the struggle, and the other, maybe he didn't get enough time. I don't know. But either way, he couldn't figure out how to make it right. So, that second, I'm trying to figure out, with Saleh, this second go around, with what he have now, is this team better than the team he had his first year with the Jets?
That's a great question. They went 4-13 and they had a rookie in Zach Wilson.
Exactly. And listen, I don't know. I mean, Zach Wilson was bad. Cam Ward wasn't good. But if you put both seasons together and compare them, how much difference was there in their play when they were out there playing? So, can he do what he didn't do with the Jets here with the Titans? Does he have a better roster? I don't know. Only time will tell. So, when you're talking about the quarterback on his second go around, and is he, going to do better his second go than he did his first? I think a lot of it depends on, who he's surrounded with. How much have you learned? And like you said, those situations that Vrabel went through at the beginning, he was able to learn from those, and Callahan wasn't. Will Saleh be able to learn from the mistakes that he made with the New York Jets?
He never even had an average NFL offense his entire time with the Jets. And so you ask yourself, is that Saleh, or is that just simply what happened at quarterback? Let's go to Adam and Portland.
One, you came from the Jets, which you get a pass. If you were with the Jets or the Browns, you get a pass at quarterback and at head coach. Look at Geno, you get a pass. It could set you back. It could take a long time to recover. So maybe he doesn't recover with us, but you get a pass. And number two, you're following the dumbest coach in history, so you get a pass. There's no way it's going to be worse. We should already expect it to be so much better than what we just experienced.
Well, the key that you said expect. So when you expect it to be way better, what are you thinking is realistic? What's your expectation?
Competency. I don't even want to give a number, dude. I could say 7 or 8 wins. I just say competency. An elbow doesn't equal 2 feet. And then he come out and lied about it afterwards. I'm not over this coach, dude. I'm not over how bad he was. Amy hiring him because you felt pressured to hire him. Everybody goofy that was involved in that situation. So I think Saleh is an adult. I think you could tell, you remember Callahan yelling on tape? I'm talking about that last camp, how goofy that was. We're not going to get any of that crap this year, man. So I just feel like he's going to be a whole lot better and confident.
He does benefit, I think, from looking good in comparison. That should be something that plays to his favor. He does also, and I've noted this before, as one of the reasons why I think he got the job. He does have a presence about him. He seems to run a press conference very well. He's polite to the media. I think that's going to play well to his favor. Although in New York, one of the criticisms, again, anybody might lose their mind trying to coach the Jets. But he did have a situation where, and I don't have the reference, but we had a guest on that corroborated the story, that he got caught up outside noise, trying to find out who was leaking things to the New York Times. He got caught on the radio saying, trying to, he was worried a lot about the noise. He followed the noise, what was being said, instead of just trying to stick to your knitting and stay focused. It probably won't be as big of a challenge here, I don't think. But of course, you're the big fish in a smaller pond in Nashville, right? The Titans are by and large the biggest thing going while the season is going on. So relatively speaking, he's going to get a lot of things said about him. He's going to have to deal with it through the tough times. I'm curious how he handles that part.
Yeah, only time will tell. And Adam, he needs to go talk to somebody. He's gonna have to get over. He's gonna have to get over Callahan. You're gonna have to go talk to somebody.
Therapy works.
That. Absolutely, it does. Believe me. Listen. However, Saleh works this thing out. Whether you believe in his presence or not, because even with presence, you have to have preparation. And did the experience Saleh had with the Jets, and the experience, for that matter, Dabo had with the Giants.
Yes.
Did that prepare them for the roles that they're in now? Did it prepare Saleh for a second go around as head coach?
That is a big one, because Dabo definitely is his guy that he was really excited to have. And in comparison, remember, he was forced to try to play Aaron Rodgers, for example. It catered to his needs. He brought in Nathaniel Hackett. It went terrible with that. And according to this article in the FTN Almanac, he was the owner overruled him on his choice of offensive coordinator multiple times. I don't know all the details of that, but that couldn't have helped either.
No.
So he had a lot of things that were weighing on him that made it tough to break through. And in the meantime, his forte is defense, and his defenses were good. Let's get to Eli up next on our phone line. 615-737-1025. We want to hear from you. Call or text. Do you think 2.0 Saleh will be a better coach? Okay, Eli, what do you got?
I think he's going to be a lot better coach, just because it's the exact opposite of what Brian Callahan has. Brian Callahan had no experience on that coaching staff, and Robert Saleh has brought an extreme amount of experience on this coaching staff. He's going to be able to delegate the offense and the special teams, and he'll be able to just mainly focus on an overarching point of the whole team in a really broad view, as opposed to having to take care of the offense and defense and kind of look in the special teams.
Okay, so optimistic Eli is. Eli, thanks a lot for the call.
Thank you. I mean, listen, you're going to have some people, and he's right. Well, Adam was right when you talk about the Jets. Anything that, you got to dismiss just about anything that comes out of New York in regards to the Jets. You got to give somebody a second opportunity, because that organization is a true dumpster fire. And again, Saleh isn't the only coach that hasn't been able to make it work, no matter who's been underneath center. They had 2 really good seasons under Rex Ryan, and after that, it was downhill. So maybe you can dismiss somewhat, what Saleh went through in New York. And that's why some people, like the last caller, they're optimistic about what Saleh can do with this young Tennessee Titan team.
And we pointed out the numbers. They're not as good as you might think of the overall record of coaches getting a second chance with a different team, even though there are success stories. And one texter says Bill Belichick was terrible with the Browns, who were a trash organization at the time. Then he went to the Patriots, and we know this is a different Doug. He says, I'm not the Doug that hung up on you.
Okay.
So thank you, Doug.
But the Bill Belichick was kind of tricky in Cleveland.
He was dealing with the whole Art Modell Cleveland Stadium. They eventually moved, so that probably didn't help Bill Belichick. But Belichick did have one really good year. Now, he was there for 5 years, and he only had one winning season, but it was a good year. They went 11-5. They won a playoff game. But I admit, so that's a good example of how the second go-around 5 years later went a lot better, and he had a guy named Tom Brady.
Yeah,
definitely
Tom
helped.
Brady does help.
So we'll see what Robert Saleh has as far as the Jimmies and Joes. When we come back, we'll get more of your texts and calls. We got a lot of you that want to weigh in on this. Will Robert Saleh 2.0 be a better head coach? Is he ready to help take the Titans out of the darkness and to the next level? 615-737-1025. What do you think? Stay tuned. DVD coming back. I feel like I've got this one. I'm going to finish strong. Which year in the 90s was this song? This is the up and coming Gwen Stefani, and No Doubt. I know this one well. I am going to go 1996 on this one. What? Impossible. 95?
You're a year off, my friend.
Come on.
95.
Come on. I wanted to finish strong.
Come on, Willie.
There's no way that was 95.
What year was it?
Come on.
Tyler?
1995.
Thank you.
Dang it. It had to be late. I think it was December 31st of 95.
What year was it again?
95.
Come on.
Yes.
Just remember, Jordan didn't play basketball that year.
Exactly. There you go.
If I just remembered that. Come on. It was still very popular in 96. I think there was some follow-up hit. I don't know.
Just don't speak, Willie.
They had some follow-up hits after that.
Oh, they had a lot of hits there.
Exactly.
They were good. They were good. All right.
Don't speak.
Don't speak. That
It's
was
all-
96. But
It's on the same album. Yeah.
So the album came out in 95. It's not necessarily when the single was released, but
Yeah.
We were going off
that
release
was the
dates.
first. That was
Yeah.
the first one. That was the first one.
I'm going off release date.
It could have been 95. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Dang it. All right. All right. Got to put it aside. Got to move on.
You're redeeming
Got to
yourself
move
tomorrow.
forward.
Tomorrow you're redeeming yourself.
Yes,
Because
we're-
it's Connor tomorrow.
Connor tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. We're talking about, speaking of redeeming, we're trying to see how Robert Saleh, he talked about it extensively today. He jumped at the chance to answer that question about why he thinks he's better. What does he learn from being a head coach in the league? And it didn't go well. His one-loss record wasn't great. But is he better now? And he is very privileged to get another chance. Not everybody gets that chance, right? A lot of times coaches who don't get it done in their first spot, they never get another chance. They never get another chance.
Especially depending on how it all ended.
Yes.
Like for instance, Brian Callahan.
And that's why we're struggling to find Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll. We have documented didn't do so well their first time around, and were much improved the second time around. If anybody else has examples of that, we'd love to hear from you. 615-737-1025. So far, so good for Vrabel, but he won the first time. He won a lot of games in Tennessee.
Yes.
It's easy to see why the Patriots wanted him.
Well,
Sean Payton was a very sought-after guy after New Orleans because he won in New Orleans. It's different for Saleh or for, at the time, Pete Carroll or even Belichick because it didn't go well the first time. Like, why should we hire you? Why should we think it's going to be better the second time?
And we talked about the situation that each coach comes into. For instance, Vrabel came into a system, a team that had just came off of a playoff win. So his, first stint as a head coach wasn't with a rebuilt team. It was with a team that was ready to win right now. And they did while he was here. Saleh, that's why I say every situation is different, especially with coaches. And why does some coaches seem to experience success the second go around and some don't? But I think some of it has to do too with what are you coming into? And again, is this roster now better than any roster that he had during the season with the Jets?
I don't know.
And we will never know.
It's not a no-brainer. Like,
it's
right
not
now,
just a bam. Oh yeah,
because the Jets had
they had some players on defense,
especially on defense.
They had a running back,
good
Brees.
Yeah,
what was the running back? Was it Brees? Not Brees Holmes.
Brees Hall.
Yeah, Brees Hall.
Yeah,
I was thinking Brees Hall. They had Brees Hall. I get it.
Pretty good player, but
they
of
had
course,
Olave.
he got
was
injured.
they? Were they? Because
they had Garrett Mitchell
Yeah.
as a wide receiver.
Yes.
A young Mitchell. He had Sauce Gardner. He had some good defensive line, and they had a good defense.
Exactly. So, but you had a young team.
Very young team.
Without a quarterback, and then you thought you got the quarterback. He gets hurt, and then all of a sudden the team basically dissolves. And the next following season, you don't get much of anything out of the team, and they fire you. But if you're looking at it from the standpoint of, okay, what did he walk into here in Tennessee? Did he walk into a situation where he can build on what's already here and develop what's already here? Or will it take him years to build this thing up and ultimately try to win?
And will he get the
Exactly.
chance to build it slowly? Because we know there's an itchy trigger finger in the owner's box.
Exactly.
Right? She has not been very patient. She hasn't been. And it may take some patience here. A lot of response on our text line. Lenny says, I should have phoned a friend for the 95-96. Yeah. We're not playing that game show. I wish I could have. Maybe I should have done that.
Phone a friend.
I tried to go with Trevor Matich and
Trevor
to help
didn't
him
know.
out earlier in the show.
I'll bring 80s tomorrow. You'll be better.
Oh, 80s. It's a no-brainer. That's my wheelhouse. Another example of a coach that didn't do well, and of course, what's the common denominator? An ex-Jets coach.
Oh, wow.
Todd Bowles.
Yes.
Didn't go well for the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Goes to Tampa. Had a guy named Brady.
Yes.
A man named Brady. Not Mike Brady from the Brady Bunch. Tom Brady. And they won the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
And to his credit, he's done pretty well in the post-Brady. He's had some good teams. He got Baker Mayfield, and he's sustained success. Yeah, so that's a good example. Even though overall we shared some numbers, it's not as good as you might think. We'll give those numbers again in case you missed what we threw out there before. The Indy Star study that they did on coaches who got a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
The winning percentage wasn't as good as you might think. They didn't just get better because of the experience. Rick texted in. He says, Josh McDaniels will be the coach of the year. He said
it went disastrous everywhere he was.
Yeah, I don't think he's a good example. He goes, if Josh McDaniels wasn't forced on him, you're kidding. So Mike would have won more than 7 games. Well, he's referring to the fact that Josh McDaniels was brought in by Mike Vrabel to run the offense. McDaniels has always been a reliable offensive coordinator. He has not done well as a head coach.
Exactly.
And another texter says he believes that the Patriots will be below 500 this year. That's an earlier topic that we had.
Oh, wow.
Let's see what else we got. 615-737-1025. And we've got a couple of texts that have the same. I'll synopsize by saying everything that Saleh is doing here is going to, I think they're giving him the benefit of the doubt that he will put his defense in there and it will be an improvement. Even though I still have my questions when you change everything from the previous defense and you bring in all new guys, not all, but a lot of new guys. The transition may not be easy, but I will say over time, I think he will put his defense in there if they draft the right way. And it looks like they've got a defensive line on paper that could be good right away. The defense, let's say, isn't the problem. So a lot of texters are saying the same thing. He's a defensive coach. So Daboll needs to be the right guy, and Cam Ward has got to get better. It's obvious, but it just put it in context. The Titans haven't had even an average offense in a good while. I think 2021 is the last time they had anything resembling a good offense, and they were the number 1 seed. They had a guy named Derrick Henry. And Robert Saleh never had that in his entire tenure with the Jets.
Yeah,
bad offense.
And I think that's ultimately we're talking about Saleh and how he's going to do, and how it's sort of stacked against him that the second go around will be better automatically than the first because of what you've learned from your first experience. So we're hyper focused on Saleh, and we should be, because ultimately he is the head guy. But the real story is Daboll. And because we look at Saleh as, like some of the texters suggested, he's a defensive guy. He's gonna have the defense ready. He's gonna make sure those guys are ready. We need somebody to make sure the offense is ready, because regardless, if this team doesn't get better on offense, we're going to continue to question, or the questions will become even louder of, did you draft the right guy with the number 1 pick 2 years ago?
He said too, he talked about Daboll and said, I'm going to defer to Daboll. They had questions about Cam Ward today at the press conference. He was like, I want to defer to Daboll. He said, I will provide what he said, defensive insight. In other words, what am I seeing as a defensive guy? I'll put that to the table, but I want Brian Daboll to be the guy to bring Cam Ward up. Here's a text with the comments on something that somebody said. I don't know if it was me. There's no way it could get worse. He says, that is the kiss of death right there. How can it be worse than the Jets?
Hey,
well,
listen, we've said that before. Yes, we've said that before, and it got worse. So if we did say that, we want to take it back.
Well, okay, so Tommy says he's using Jim Harbaugh
Mhm.
as second go round with the Chargers.
Yes.
But he did very well in his first tenure with the Niners.
Yes,
right?
he did. He went to the Super Bowl.
So the repeat coaches, rehired coaches, there are definitely success stories, but we're trying to figure out how many who did well in the second time did well in the first time as well.
Yeah.
And
Harbaugh
Harbaugh did.
But Harbaugh left
He
the
did.
NFL in general.
Yes, he did.
And went to college football and won a championship with that team. You know,
the team that DMase doesn't like talking
the
about.
team that I do not like talking about.
And they
The
did
other
cheat.
team
And
in my state.
they stole signs and all
Yeah,
that stuff
so
too.
they
So
did
it was
all that
not
stuff.
pure.
Exactly.
But just to recap the key stat from the Indy Star, from 1998 to 2018, there were 19 coaches that were rehired for a second go round on a different team. And of those 19, only 7 improved on their winning percentage the second go round. So now Robert Saleh is starting at a position because they didn't win a lot of games.
Yeah.
You hope that 357 winning percentage, he has a chance to improve. It won't take much because he went 20 and 36. So that's not really the end all be all. If he has a 500 record, he still probably is going to be underwhelming.
Exactly.
So you need more than that, but it's an interesting stat to look at for sure.
Why do you believe that? Because I'm wondering, does every fan base across the NFL, when their team have come off of back-to-back losing seasons, how much optimism in that next following year, say after 2 back-to-back losing seasons, and you got a new quarterback, do you think that your team is going to make the playoffs the next following year? If your team was the Titans, I would want to think, how would another fan base feel about them? Because I'm trying to still figure out, like, all of these moves that the Titans are making, people are still like, I don't think this team gonna win no more than 6 games or 5 games or 3 games.
6 games wouldn't
And
be
I'm
bad.
like,
6
it
games would
wouldn't
be
be
good.
bad. It would be double what they won last year. But still, I'm looking like, I wonder if we were in another state and would this be the conversation about their team heading into the third year? The second year of their second year quarterback.
Well,
Just
we'll
a
get to
question.
see it on display tomorrow. The first practice is tomorrow morning. We're going to check it out, and we'll have all the coverage for you here on 102.5 The Game. And let's get a quick note from Connor on what is happening on the 6 o'clock hour.
We'll talk a lot of Titans today. I want to talk a lot about that press conference, what it means, how contending they can be this season, the offensive line. We'll break it all down in the next hour.
Good. We got the reset button, so you'll be starting fresh with Connor Newt during the 6 o'clock hour. Until then, we will join you, DMase and I, tomorrow at 3.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music? Don't forget about us, because we will not forget about you. You will be listening to us starting at 3 p.m. tomorrow on 102.5 The Game. And as I always say, we're going to be talking and
you're going to be listening.
Peace.